Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ASAP, Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, joined as always by my co-host and sister, Michelee. What's going on, sis?
Good morning to you. Good morning. I'm feeling pretty good this morning. Had my dinner early, so I'm feeling nice and satisfied right now. But but yeah, I'm excited to talk about what we about to get into.
Yep,
But what about you? How are you feeling this morning?
I'm okay. I'm feeling a lot better. As you know, I told you I started that night job and it had me like the last time I worked as like having to work 8 hours on my feet like that was
Yeah,
I was in my early 20s, right? I'm in my early 30s now. And
yeah,
that 9 to 10 year difference is different. Like
right.
really. Sometimes you don't really realize how old you are or how old you're getting until you do some stuff that you used to be able to do like real
I'm
easy. And you're
telling
like,
you.
hold up, what is
I'm telling
happening? It's like,
you. It hit different. It hit
oh,
different
so
in
that
30.
age thing is real. Like
Yes, you
my
feel it in the
bones are like,
knees.
bruh.
In the knees and your back. I'm like, okay, let me yeah.
My bone marrow saying, "Hey, bro, we fresh out of stem cells in this thing, man.
Right.
You old now. You fully
I'm telling
realized
you.
out here." Nah,
Mm-mm.
but
But let's try to
I'm
stay young and healthy though.
right. You gotta watch what we eat and all that stuff. So
For
I'm feeling
sure.
okay. Just trying to handle some, still navigating how to be a husband. So
Hmm.
it's always a lesson to be learned. And I'll tell you something off air, and
Yeah.
then we'll go. Yeah, but everything is good though.
All
Still
right,
pretty
cool.
positive. So this topic for today, before we go into it, last thing on the check-in, it's just a bunch of stuff. I'm tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, which is a
Oof.
part of what we're talking about today. It's just enough is enough, bro. Like
Mm.
when can we just live? I need an escape hatch like
Can I
under my
live?
house to let me back to transport me back to Africa, man, cuz I
Right.
just need to breathe. So, anyway, today's topic, our straight truth no chaser. So this is a 2-day series called Poe Righteous Teachers. This is volume 1. So welcome to Poe Righteous Teachers volume 1 sub series of ASAP. And what do we mean by that? Straight truth no chaser, righteousness is not equal to poor, people. Like we don't have to be, running ragged just to prove that we on the right side of things, that we expect our athletes to be rich, our music artists to be rich, our all of our entertainers and all those people, they can be rich, they can floss, they can flex, they can do all those things. But as soon as anybody who is on any type of path of leadership or righteousness or self-proclaimed whatever, we expect them to live and die poor.
Right.
Martin Luther King died poor.
Yeah.
Malcolm X died struggling. Medgar Evers died struggling. Like Huey Newton died struggling. Is that the legacy we want to leave for our leaders? Is that the expectation? Is that
It
the
ap-
requirement to be a respected leader? To
it
be
appears to
poor?
be so.
It's like, what is that about? What's your take on that? Because I'm sick of it.
Oh,
I'm
wait.
back.
I've This is something I noticed years ago, and just looking, for example, when we do have like a someone who's putting himself out front to call for change and doing anything, speaking on our behalf or something. And of course things take money. People have to travel. If you're expecting somebody to dedicate their life to the struggle, to the cause, they need to travel. They have to stay somewhere, they have to eat. You know what I mean? And so there are several leaders that I know now, who keep us up to date on everything going on. They are actively, participating in these and leading the way in a lot of marches and protests and and also being involved with like whoever, the higher ups, dealing with the legal stuff and a lot of these issues that we seeing in the news recently. And people will question, like, really doubt, like, what are they doing with the money? Or, they see them, immediately. They see them with a clean shirt on and like, they over there buying clothes with our donation money, and it's like, when are we going to like just, I don't know. I think that's sad, because I think about people like, like when we read about past leaders and how they died penniless and their families, dedicated their whole life. They're living in fear, like for their life. And the best we could do is complain about where we think the money is going. And like, as if they balling out, with jets and, private jets going here and there. It's like, man, we got to get it together. I don't know.
And it's like, it's almost like a complaint for the sake of complaining, because you want more to get done, right? You want more done. These people, if they're dedicating their lives to something, especially something that is not a revenue bringing in business, it still is a life commitment to a business. Like, now we've figured out a way, like with African Unity Initiative, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I make a living while I do this work? Trying to figure out, okay, what career do I go into? And then I found out that nonprofit organizations exist, right? And how they function. And the fact that, administrative costs are a thing. Like you said, traveling from the places, doing the setup of the events, all of these things, hiring the people who are professional enough to be able to handle the things, because you can't just expect everybody to be a volunteer, because you get what you pay for. And then we complain about not having quality stuff.
Yes.
Like, if we pay for the right marketing and pay for the right venues and pay for the right people to host these things, then we'll get more attention. We'll get more sustenance, more quality out of what it is that we're bringing to the fold. And then because we do like host events in our communities, and then people will look around and like, oh, okay, this ain't really. And then you got the people who you're doing stuff for looking down on what you're able to do. But it's like, we can only do what we have. And it's just crazy. So anytime somebody puts themselves in position of wanting to be a leader, and they may not even call themselves that, they may just be vocal in wanting to see change and giving out information. As soon as they ask for funds or in-kind resources, everything is in question. And we're not saying not to be analytical and not to be conscious of who and what you're giving your funds to. But we're saying sometimes we're overboard with it. It's almost like there's nobody that can ever do right.
Absolutely. We're automatically skeptical of anyone, somebody that looks like us, who will step out.
Especially somebody that look like us, because I see people donate to the Red Cross and USAID and CARE and what is it, the United Way, all the time. And, discovering information about nonprofits, they have to be very transparent with where the money is going. And we know that 90 cents out of every dollar in the Red Cross goes to admin costs. 10% goes to the actual work. Now you got organizations out here that flips that, and 10% goes to the admin costs and 90% goes to the work, or maybe it's 70-30, whatever. But the admin cost is real.
Right. Because think about, like, if you didn't have the right people answering calls and emails and this, you will be complaining about how you can't get in touch with them, because how else are you supposed to manage all of that on your own, or with people expecting to do, you're expecting them to do it for free. Well, then if I'm doing it for free and this is the actual job, you know, I'm going to dedicate whatever time I have, which might not be a lot.
Exactly. If I'm doing it
So
for free, I can't live like that, right?
exactly, right, because it takes
So
time.
lawyers do pro bono work, but they
Hmm.
also have a full-time job that they get paid for. They may do one pro bono case every 3 months or something, right?
Yeah,
So if we're gonna have that type of expectation where it's gonna be pro bono, then you're gonna know that the access is going to be limited.
exactly,
But
exactly.
if we want consistency, if we want sustainability, if we want real change, then we have to understand that it's okay for the person to be able to make money. They have to make a living. They have families.
Exactly.
They're real people. Like this,
Yeah.
it's almost like we see our leaders or the people who advocate like full time on our behalf as if they're like robots and don't need anything. And that's not the case. That's not reality. So
Yeah.
it's just about really advancing our expectations. And then it goes, so you got the people who come from nothing who want to be advocates. And as soon
Mhm.
as they show that they're making any bit of money, then everything goes into question.
They sold
Then
out.
another
Somebody
thing
bought them.
happens, right? But another thing happens. So we have the people that we accept that they make money by being an artist, by being an athlete, by being whatever. And then that's while they're doing that and not advocating for us, we all the way cool with them. However
Yeah.
they spend their money, whatever they doing with it. As soon as they become conscious and want to advocate for us, we start to question every single thing that they do. Now we have
Oh,
no problem with them while they were just a basketball player and
yeah.
buying a Bentley. But now that
Yeah.
they want to speak out on our behalf, we got a problem and dissect every little thing that they say. That I don't get it.
One thing I always hear and see, comments on when it comes to like celebrities using their platforms to speak on behalf of, the people, and social justice issues. People are always like, we always know from who we're hearing, shut up and dribble or shut up and sing and this and that. But even from us, people are like, well, they're, celebrities aren't this and that. They just only good for doing whatever their job is. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
what? I don't know, man. It's like we confused. I think we have such a bad relationship with money and with money and with I don't know. I don't think it's just money. It's another word I'm looking for, but I guess prosperity or something because
We don't
I also
understand how it works.
connected. Yeah, and I also connected with this idea of like when someone comes from money, right? Like you might have like a trust fund kid or something, and
Mm-hmm.
just for example, right? We go to school, we go to college. Now you in a group with a bunch of other people come from different places, different walks of life. And then somebody that comes from money, you question them like, oh, you ain't real because you didn't come from the hood. Or, and it's just like how we step to people and like you gotta make sure they authentic and they only authentic really if they came from the struggle. And it's like if we are talking about moving forward, I don't want to always come. I'm hoping that I don't have to raise my kids in the struggle, like you know what I mean, like in like dirt poor. We should always be trying to build on top of what we already had. Like that's the
You're
whole
right.
point, right? We don't want to start from square one every single generation. That would be defeating the purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but it's seen or people are seen as authentic if they come from the dirt. And it's just like, man, we have to just change our whole mindsets on that. It's just kind of
And that's
crazy.
and that's a real experience that Black people have, right? That
Mhm.
that come from the dirt environment, but it's not the only experience. We continuously say Blackness is not a monolith. We say it over and over again. However, we do ourselves a disservice when we pigeonhole our own narrative.
Yeah.
We're so used to this narrative about us that we feel like Blackness is limited to only that experience. And, it comes from internal strife with, colorism. And then there's the Black bourgeoisie and how that whole thing happened. So you understand that there's a history there. However, just like all of our other conversations, dialogue is necessary. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how can we both benefit one another? How do we win-win? We talk
Right.
about this in the African diaspora. How do we get to know more about each other to kind of tear down some of these myths? But even
Right.
within Black America itself, there are myths about other ways of Blackness and all these things, the right and wrong way to be Black. And it inhibits us from advancing because it's such a complicated history and it's so trauma filled, right? It's wrought with trauma because
Right.
at the same time, we all understand that all skin folk, not kinfolk, right? We
Mm-hmm.
understand that the UNIA and the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and a lot of our organizations were really taken down from the inside by people who were paid to be infiltrators. So
Mm-hmm.
again, do not mistake what we're saying as being don't be aware of what's
Right.
happening.
Of course.
We're saying don't overly scrutinize every single thing. When you see
Mm-hmm.
somebody trying to do good, example, Beyonce Black is King,
Mm-hmm.
you know that the intention behind that is positive. And if you took the time to listen to the person actually say why I'm doing this, what the influences were, who I consulted to be involved in this,
Mm-hmm.
then you know that there was, time taken, careful preparation to make sure that there was accurate representation. And it still gets overly scrutinized. And I call that over intellectualization because that's counterproductive.
Right.
Like we can't go to the extreme. We have to be very aware of what it is that we expect. And that's the thing. Like we don't have on paper what our expectations are. So we just criticize everything. Okay. So I'm
There it
aware
is.
now. I'm woke. So I got to
Yep.
be laser focused on every single thing. Everything is wrong. And
Yeah.
that's
What's the
just not
plan?
the case.
Yeah, what's the plan? What's the agenda? If we don't even have like the drawn out plan to know where we're supposed to, like what point we're supposed to get to be able to, turn and then proceed, to the next point. We don't know the plan. We're not understanding like even the strategy. I feel like we're just kind of just, running around with our heads, like chickens with our heads cut off, and just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because it's not focused. The even the understanding of what we're supposed to do or what we need for the revolution, right? What we're talking about for making progress. What do we need when we talk about even with the political system? How do we navigate the political system? We're not trying to separate. Who is separating? You know what I mean? When we talk about it, a lot of times people, you know, um, want to say, well, it's not for us, and it wasn't made. We know this, right? We know it wasn't made in our favor, but we're
Mm-hmm.
choosing to be there, right? We're choosing to still stay citizens of that country, and so you
Right.
have to learn how to play by the rules. What do you need? And like we always talk about, with especially what we're trying to develop, or what we are developing with the social activism playbook. We're trying to lay out the plans that our elders and ancestors already laid out, and what strategies that they used. Look at how they got things passed in the civil rights movement. They needed, they needed certain things. They needed money as well. We'll get into it a little bit later in another segment, but
Mm-hmm.
celebrities back then were active in participating to get things passed, to get things moving. And so I think we
Yep.
just, like you said, just extra critical without even stopping to think, well, should I be? And I'll let
And,
one more thing. Let me point out,
mm-hmm.
like, when you pointed out Beyonce, but I wanted to point out, like, even with Cardi B having the discussions with politicians, like she talked with Bernie Sanders, right, and Joe Biden and somebody else, right, and
Mm-hmm.
people were on there like dogging her, like, stick to music, you don't even speak English well, and it's just like, man, what we want people with a large platform, people of our community, to speak on our behalf, to demand things, right? She's trying to do that with what she has. She has a large audience. She has a big platform. Why, like, we got to just pick our battles, man. It's like, you can't be too critical.
And I say this all the time. I was a teacher. There were certain students that flocked to me and they would, they wanted me to be their mentor. There were certain students who didn't vibe like that with me. And it was a, a revealing moment when I was like, okay, I can't individually, first of all, individually, even if all the students did vibe with me, I can't be a mentor to all of them, right?
Right.
I can't speak to all of them and I can't give them all equal time. So
Right.
it is actually to my advantage that they all don't look at me that way. I have the few students who do, and I will give my time that I have to them. And then the other students, what I can do is find somebody that they can relate to or that they do want to listen to and get the message from that person. For me, it doesn't matter how you get the message. So long as you get it. I don't care who the messenger is. And sometimes we love to kill the messenger.
Yes.
Listen, certain people will respond to the ways that a lot of different people speak. Some people need that Cardi B because they are in that environment where that is their language, right?
Exactly.
That is real. And
Exactly.
seeing the person that they are looking up to be politically involved will get some people who would never even consider it be politically involved and be engaged.
Exactly.
Know who Joe Biden is on a level other than he was associated with Barack Obama. Hear him actually speak. They might watch an entire interview where they don't turn it on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC. They may not even know what those channels are on their dial. And then even so much more now with people not having cable, who the hell has cable? Who's watching news? Like we're getting our information in video clips off YouTube and on Twitch and on TikTok. If Cardi B can put a Joe Biden interview on TikTok for 15 seconds, that's going to reach more people than CNN. It's going to reach more people in her audience. Do we want more people involved and educated enough? We keep talking about we can't just sell our votes for nothing. Well, we got to get people engaged on all the different levels. So the same way that some people will respond to a Damon Dash type of delivery, right? Some people will respond more to a DJ Envy type delivery. Whatever is the message. Is there meat to the message?
Right.
Is there any type of merit to what it is that the person is saying? And then we can move on from there. But just tearing people down immediately, we have to listen first. Analytical doesn't mean that, like, I used to grade papers, right? I'll grade essays. And you can't just mark up the whole thing. You got to let people know, okay, this right here, that's an awkward sentence, but this is a good idea. Keep with that. I tell people what it is that they're doing.
Exactly.
And then show them ways, constructive criticism is saying, okay, this can be done a little bit better here. This is a way that you could have addressed this a little bit better. So, this is a part 1 of part 2, and we'll go in deeper into certain elements of it tomorrow. But just recognize when we're being overly critical. Those of us who consider ourselves to be knowledgeable, like, okay, is it wrong to be rich and righteous? Do we not want our leaders to have anything? And then when those who are already rich decide to be, outspoken, do we just tear that down from the get green? Because it doesn't make much sense. Right? It's almost like, okay, what do you want? What do you want?
I don't think we know what
you just want to be able to complain. And that's my issue. That's why we're doing this social activism playbook, so that we can bring strategy to this, because we know how to do we are advanced in the stand up part. We've stood up now. Okay, we're aware, we're woke. And just think about it in the context of actually literally waking up. You wake up, you're still in the bed. Sometimes you wake up, you're conscious, but your eyes are still closed. You know what's happening in the day, but you're still in the bed. We have to be woke, get up, open our eyes, put some water on your face.
Rub that sleep off your eyes.
Brush your teeth, freshen up, take a shower, and then get out and be ready to do something. It's not enough to just be woke.
Right.
Woke, then be active. Right. So it's sometimes
because a lot of people cranky when they wake up. So it goes with that same thing. You might not be a morning person. So look, take your time, analyze, just try to figure out what direction you want your day to go. Right. And then
think about trying to do your schoolwork as immediately after you wake up. You're gonna be groggy. You're going to be complaining about every single thing. And that's where we are when we first wake up. We first wake up and we see everything that's happened to Black people and we upset about it. We mad, which is a understandable response to all of the trauma that we've experienced globally as Black people, right? However, that's not the place where you actually can be active and be productive. You have to do a little bit more. You got to wipe the sleep out your eyes. You got to understand, okay, so I'm not the first person to realize these things. There are other people who know what's happening. There are other people who've written about this, other people who've done something. Let me look to see what they did. How did they get over their anger? How did they become productive? How did they use that energy? Because anger is like fire. It can be contained. Fire can be utilized to cook. It can be utilized to, do all types of things, heat your house, provide all types of things for you. But uncontained fire will burn your house down. That same fire that you just needed to cook your food will burn your house down. So it's like we have to contain that energy and do something with it and make it productive and make it useful for us. So we have to make sure that we're not overly critical. So now something just happened yesterday. And this is a highlight reel of present day. And then we'll also pull some things from the past because this isn't the first time that athletes have been actively involved. So Jacob Blake gets shot 7 times in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And all the NBA players who are still playing are in Orlando in what they call the bubble. And so the Milwaukee Bucks, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it just so happened to line up this way. They were the first game on the docket. They were supposed to play at 4 p.m. yesterday. And I believe that if there were any other order of events, like if it was any other 2 teams that had to play first, it probably wouldn't have had the same effect and probably wouldn't have happened. But things work out that way. The universe aligns certain things for, stuff to just make sense. So the Milwaukee Bucks never leave the locker room when the horn blows, when the game is supposed to start, when warm-ups are supposed to start. And they didn't even tell the Orlando Magic who they were playing. And that was good to me. Some people question, they were like, they should have told the Orlando Magic. I liked it because it brought attention. Like, where are they?
For sure. Exactly.
It started that conversation. And then you had to go find. And then it prompted the Orlando Magic. So they was like, okay, are y'all going to accept this as a forfeit? They were like, no. And they walked off the court. And then it was like, okay, what's going on? So all of the sports networks, people who don't watch the news, who will watch ESPN and Fox Sports 1, are now having to pay attention. And then, of course, the rest of the games got postponed for yesterday. And now it's in question of whether the playoffs is going to continue at all. And there was there was some concerns about whether they should go back to the bubble and try to play basketball at all with everything that's going on. And I've always been, go ahead.
No, I was saying, I was reading something this morning and think that I was reading that LeBron James made a statement on, well, not a public statement, but someone was saying that Lakers were discussing that they might not play for the rest of the, for however long. I don't know however long, I don't know if it was for the playoff thing or for the rest of the season. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I read something like that this morning.
Yeah. LeBron is saying to call everything off
Mm-hmm.
until certain thing, but what he and Kawhi, which are like the two marquee teams that are in the bubble right now, and if they leave, not only the teams, but the two marquee players from the two marquee teams is going to really cause some trouble. And it may lead the other players to be like, we don't want to be here either. I know George Hill
Yeah.
spoke out, but even before they went, there were players who were saying they shouldn't go at all. I didn't agree with that only because this moment wouldn't have happened. Imagine, because like with Alton Sterling, Philando Castillo, Trayvon Martin, we had the NBA players speaking out then on Twitter.
Yeah.
But individual athletes would speak out on Twitter and on social media and say certain things. But now with everyone's attention on this bubble, with the pandemic of COVID, the pandemic of racism, you have everyone's attention on this thing trying to see, okay, can we get some type of normalcy back? So them going back actually gave them the moment. They actually get people listening to the post games where they can say things like justice for Breonna Taylor after every game.
Yeah.
That is keeping it in the public conscious. That's keeping it on ESPN, places that would never traditionally have reported it if they would just have not gone at all.
Mm-hmm.
You got players with, messages on their jerseys. I think all of that, all those things, those little incremental steps are necessary. You have these corporations, whether they, Johnny come lately or whatever, are saying Black Lives Matter proudly, right? So now it's time to, yes, be critical of these organizations and these leagues of just, saying it as a mouthpiece. But also, while we can criticize that, there is an element that now that they've acknowledged it, now we can use it.
Yes.
Now we can say, okay, now live up to the words that you say. We can hold their feet to the fire. We can hold them accountable now. When they were ignoring it, there was no feet to hold to any fire because they're ignoring the existence of it at all.
Yeah.
But
so
now
that we've acknowledged it, you have to do something about it. So when we saw like in the whole moment where they were painting the streets with Black Lives Matter and stuff, there were a lot of like corporations, big corporations and smaller corporations, trying to asking their employees basically, for recommendations for for organizations to donate to or community programs, whatever, for them to seem, involved. And like you said, you can still be critical of, wondering if they are genuine about it. But again, it doesn't really matter whether or not they're genuine, whether or not they actually feel it in their heart. Are they doing it? Right? Because we need our community programs funded. We need all of these organizations to move us forward. That these grassroots organizations, they need money to do what they're supposed to do. We can't, again, be poor righteous teachers. We have to have funding to reach the people, to have a certain amount of resources to be effective enough. And so we can't go around with this idea that, in order to accept something from somebody, and that's the same thing even for the face, right? I see politicians basically puppets, right? They're the mouthpiece, but the citizens are supposed to control the words that's coming out the mouth, right? And so we have to understand that we have to put the battery in the back. And
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Lyndon B. Johnson did not like Black people.
Exactly. I just wrote
he was not genuine in any of the activities that he did. And after he had passed all those progressive bills, for our benefit. He later like was recorded calling Martin Luther King the N-word and
Yes,
saying that he
exactly.
was, tired of him. But with our influence and our collective agenda, we made somebody who didn't care about us genuinely do real tangible things that helped us move along and survive for at least another couple of decades in this country without, going crazy. So it doesn't matter if it's genuine.
Exactly.
We can still hold their feet to the fire.
Who signed
I don't care about them liking us.
Who signed the Emancipation Proclamation to that got, he had slaves, right? Right?
Yes. And
like,
if you listen to early Abraham Lincoln, he didn't care anything about ending enslavement. That was a bargaining tool. The Emancipation Proclamation was actually just a threat to say, hey, Confederacy, if you don't come back, we're going to do this. Not saying we're going to do this because it's morally right.
Right.
It was a bargaining tool.
Exactly. So
our ancestors were a bargaining tool.
Yes.
If they would have come back and not went to war, enslavement would have stayed. If the Confederacy would have just said, all right, we coming back, we succeed, no war. The bargaining tool was, if you come back, you keep your enslaved. If you stay separated, we're going to free them and then we're going to war against you. It wasn't for our benefit.
Right.
He said
that had he been able to keep, the Africans enslaved, he would have, if it was another way to do it. So it had nothing to do with us. It was nothing about it being more about their hearts changing. It's like we have to get out of that of, thinking, even when it comes to our politicians who we're talking about, we're wasting so much time being so overly critical about them, doing something and how they feel about Black people and our, we need a job to be done. We need moves to be made, and we have to really think about the strategies that it would take. Whoever, it could be Trump, who,
so
if we have an agenda, we don't have the agenda put together so far.
We can make anybody move. We can make anybody in any office move if we are collective and strategic.
Yes.
Like the 3/5 compromise, people think, they consider Black people 3/5 of. People don't understand that the 3/5 compromise was put in place by the Northerners. The Southerners wanted the enslaved to count as one whole person because that would mean more representation in Congress for their states. It was the North that was like, whoa, no, you can't count your enslaved because then y'all gonna have way more representation in the movings of the country than we do, because like they owned enslaved people in the North too. They just didn't have enough land mass and the agriculture wasn't there. So we worked as enslaved people in factories and different types of industries for free. So of course, if you got farmland and plantations, you can have hundreds upon hundreds of enslaved people, where if you have a factory, you can only have maybe 50. You got to feed and house these people. Like that was real. Like it was. So you have the people saying, oh no, so we compromised. You can count 3/5 of them. Each person counts as 3/5. People look at the 3/5 thing and think that it was the racists or the Southern outward racists who wanted that. No.
Right. So that was strategy on their end. It had nothing to do
exactly. Understanding the full breadth of the history of this country and all these different elements. Okay, who do I trust? What elements were this? How did this come to be? And understanding how all these things work within one another. And I've seen people even with the NBA protests, where do they go from here? Guess what? That's what us as the so-called knowledgeable people. These are NBA players. If you know anything about athletes, You know that in school, most of the time they get a pass, they focus more on the sport. They are masters of their game. They are a genius in that area. Now, we look to them to speak out and advocate and then challenge them when they do. So let's advise them to see, okay, where do we go from here? What's next? They did their part by standing up and saying, we're going to sacrifice not only our game, the love that we have, but also our livelihood.
Exactly.
Just because they make millions of dollars and then the lowest contract minimum is like hundreds of thousands of dollars, their lifestyle reflects those salaries. So they actually still have bills that reflect as much as they make. Everybody lives paycheck to paycheck. We saw that with this pandemic. We saw just how many people are struggling, no matter how much money they make, because how much money you make determines how much you buy and how much your monthly bills are. So they are making a real sacrifice by possibly stopping the rest of the playoffs in these games. And so now you're asking them what comes next. Well, they have to figure that out. The first step is to actually take some type of stand. They've done that. So now those of us who are asking the question, what comes next? Okay, now we boycott. What next? Let's formulate the ideas. Let's help them along instead of challenging them in this pessimistic mindset. Let's say, hey guys, we will sit down with you. We will come up with a plan with you and help you figure out how you can utilize your power. LeBron James is challenging the NBA owners to say, you guys are connected politically. Use some of that lobbying power to talk to your friends in Congress and in the higher places and in executive offices, because we know you know a lot of these people. Billionaires know billionaires. It's a small little circle of people. You know, we call it the 1%. And use some of that influence that you guys have as NBA owners to do more work in our communities where the teams are, and also do more work on the lobbying side for these issues that, you know, what, over 80% of the NBA is black. That's safe to say. Over 80%. And the players that, you know, work for the teams that you own, make sure that our messages are being reflected in the places that even as a high paying, you know, highly paid athlete, we can't get into certain circles.
Right.
So when we bring it to your attention, do something about it.
Right. And the thing is, like, with, especially in today's world, you know, how we communicate, these celebrities, like, you know, whether all entertainers, athletes, whatever, they're connected with their fan base as well. And so they read and respond to questions and requests and things like that. So for those of us who are, you know, who have the ideas, instead of putting that pressure on them to come up with something, you know, it would be wise to try to go with more like an advising, you know, approach. And so, I mean, the thing about it though, there are people who do that, but the public is busy criticizing them as well. Like, I think we've always heard from, well, you know, entertainers, celebrities, period, have always heard when they try to speak up, you know, on something about social justice, that, you know, they should just be quiet, you know, in politics or whatever. They should just be quiet and stick to what they know, stick to what they do. And I think, you know, for them, it makes sense that they will be saying that, right? Because it doesn't concern them. You know, these things are not really concerning them. And so they're not realizing how that platform really helps us, right? Because we the ones that are going unheard. And, you know, our cries just going unheard. And so it would be wise of us to cut out all of that noise of being overly critical. Like, if someone says something or like is tearing down or being counterproductive, that's one thing. But when people they're again sacrificing their livelihood, they're not, you know, your check is not being affected by them stepping out, walking off the court or walking off the stage and, you know, turning down contracts and stuff. They are already putting themselves in that position to be, you know, to be affected by their decision, and it's on our behalf. And so we can't, I think at the very least, like, just be appreciative of that gesture, you know. And you can, even if you don't like the person, even if you don't care to hear from that person, understand that what they're doing is actually honorable. Like, and you know, I think we need to just cut out a lot of this heavy criticism and be logical about it.
Every time I assess something, whether I agree with a person or not, I am like, okay, is me interacting with this conversation, is it going to advance anything? Is it productive? There's a bunch of stuff I see that I don't like. And most of the times I feel like it's more productive to just not talk about the things I don't like, and only bring to the forefront the things that I do care about, that I am passionate about. Now, like you said, if it's something that is outwardly counterproductive, like a Terry Crews inserting himself into certain conversations where nobody was asking him anything, that needs to be addressed, because it's like, bro, sit down. You're messing up you are interrupting and creating an unnecessary blockade.
Exactly.
Like, you're creating a barrier that doesn't even need to be there, because it wasn't even like you were being interviewed or anything. That needs to be addressed, because that's productive in me shutting that down. That narrative has to be nipped in the bud. However, if somebody is trying to do something and even asking, okay, where do I go? What needs to be done? Don't poo-poo that person or asking the question, right?
Yeah.
Don't say you should know. Why? How should they know? Why should they know? What in our education shows that they should already know?
Right.
Reconsider how you know. And that's my issue with some of these overly woke people. Remember why you know. Was it an uncle? Was it a father? Was it somebody, a mentor that gave you access to a book? Was it somebody that was patient enough with you when you were not in the know? Remember how you know. Then you can also step outside and say, okay, I remember when I didn't know. So they probably don't know.
Yeah.
Let me
They haven't
use
been
my
made aware
knowing.
yet. Exactly.
Let me use what I know to advise them on what they can do with they have the platform. I have the knowledge. Come together. We form a unit, of knowledge and influence. And the thing is, sometimes I think it's jealousy of the people with the knowledge. They feel like they should have the influence.
I feel that. I 100%. I feel that.
And that is counterproductive. Who cares if the message is coming from you? And that's my issue with a lot of these people.
And my challenge, my challenge to a lot of people is also, people that I see are being like just overly critical of everyone, who is making a statement. I'm like, that if you become, if you happen to be in the spotlight, people are going to come at you the same way. They're going to wonder how authentic you are. They're going to wonder, or say that you don't know what you're talking about, or like, it's the criticism is going to come regardless. And just realize, like, what you're dishing out, you're going to get back too, and I think we just, I mean, that it really makes no sense, like you said. And it's like, just at that point, take a nap. You think you so woke and you just so far ahead, just take a nap, because somebody else woke you up. Somebody else, made you aware of what you do know. It wasn't all your life. It wasn't straight out the womb. So just humble yourself. And like, again, with this, because we'll start to cancel people too. We're talking about recent times and this whole cancel culture, and somebody is canceled. You don't want to ever hear anything. They can't even go and be advised at this point. Like, there would be a celebrity who would step up and make a statement on politics or something. And then now you start to see them with people who are knowledgeable about the politics, but then it's too late for them. Now it's too late for the people, because they slipped up and said something or didn't know enough at this one point when they originally made a statement. And so now they're not even allowed to grow. You just don't want to hear anything they have to say.
So
it's not helpful.
We talked about the universe. You and I talked about doing this show yesterday before the NBA protests.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that, I heard that yesterday marked 4 years of Colin Kaepernick's initial seated protest, silent seated protest during the national anthem to, address and bring attention to police brutality. And, so I get sick of saying police brutality because police are murdering people. Like, that's beyond brutality. Like,
Yeah.
that's criminal.
Yeah.
Police brutality is wrong, but this is criminal. And so trying to bring attention to it, 2016, right? And this is what 2016 was one of those years. That's after the Philando Castillo, Alton Sterling. Those two murders happened in one day in two different parts of the country, which was just like sickening. And Colin decided that August, that preseason, that he wasn't going to stand up for the national anthem. And we saw all of the criticism. Now, the NBA protest happened on the same day 4 years later, which is just some type of cosmic alignment that you can't write that. If you wrote it in a movie, you'd be like, come on, that's too ridiculous. This happened in real life, though. So we're looking at now all of these corporations saying Black Lives Matter. All of these people saying, oh, okay, I get it. Colin said it 4 years ago and lost work, lost the job. And it wasn't about his job. He wasn't doing it for his job. He was already working when he made the protest. And he was just ridiculed back and forth by Black people, by white people, by the NFL, by corporations, by news media. Why is he doing that? He didn't grow up like this. Like, we brought up the fact that Colin Kaepernick was adopted by white people and was raised in a nice neighborhood so he can't feel a certain way. He can't feel a certain way. So that is criticism coming from within Black people.
Yeah.
Oh, why does he care all of a sudden?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, there is mass murders of Black people by the police. Yes, it was happening. Like, yes, we had Mike Brown 2014. We had Eric Garner 15. We had Freddie Gray 14, 15, Tamir Rice. But that Alton Sterling, I remember the Alton Sterling Philando Castillo day, and like the life that it sucked out of me. So having that protest begin after that summer made sense to me, because you thought certain things were going to happen after the Trayvon, Tamir, Mike, Freddie, Eric situations, and it just kept happening. And for it to happen twice in a day, not in the same city,
different parts
of the country, it just did something. Because it's like, okay, it don't matter where you are.
I remember feeling like, like this is like people are doing it on purpose, even, and they're knowing that they're going to be protected. At least they have a great chance of getting off. It's certain trigger words that they can use to get them off. And I mean, it really feels, even to this day, because, again, that was in 2016. It had been happening before. And literally a couple days ago, it happens again. And, it's a constant thing, but I feel like it's happening so much. And I'm sure, like, when I was feeling in that year, 2016, like you said, it was back to back to back. It seemed it was always a different story. Another hashtag, added to the list.
Right.
And I'm sure, he felt like it was the time to finally, like, what can I do? you know,
And he said he had been trying to figure out, okay, talking to his girlfriend and trying to figure out, okay, how do I use whatever platform that I have to, you know, bring some attention to this? And again, it was a silent protest.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing it for like 3 games before anybody even asked him about it.
Right.
And when he was asked, he gave a direct answer that, you know, I am sitting in protest of the national anthem because that flag and that song have words in it that don't reflect how they treat everyone in the country.
Right.
They represent the flag is a symbol of something that isn't reflected for everyone. And so, athlete putting himself out there, doing something that wasn't necessary, right? He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to use his platform in that way. And when he does do something about it, we complain that we want people who have platforms to do something. And then when they do, we are overly critical of their intentions. Who cares? I don't care if Colin is the fakest person on the planet. He brought attention to the police killing Black people.
And that's what we want,
the
right?
Result, like the result, the solution, the end. He says that his intentions are pure until, like, we have this, and this is the thing that we do when we are overly critical. We have this guilty until proven innocent. We already suffer that as Black people in the court system. We're guilty. We got to prove our innocence. And as soon as somebody steps out and advocates for us, they are sellouts, or they're not genuine until proven genuine.
They're doing it for the hype.
Why
for
are
the
we
clout.
Right? What clout? You tell me. Because at the time, this was the narrative. Oh, Colin is the backup quarterback. He lost his starting position, so he's just trying to bring attention to himself.
Exactly.
He gets a starting quarterback job,
mm-hmm.
and then loses his job. So now that narrative is out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
Now he gets a settlement from the league. Well, he just did it for the money. That what?
I literally saw all of these, like it was a breakdown, people comparing him in the middle of this conversation, in the middle of this protest. People are comparing his record as a quarterback to other quarterbacks. And I'm like, y'all, is this really where we trying to take the conversation? You can't, like, are you that? I feel like people are just, I don't know, is it that you're miserable, you just hopeless, you just, what is it, you know? And then the whole call, you know, from the rest of the community, I guess, or, you know, I don't know who called originally for the just protest of the NFL based on their reaction to his protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were so many people making excuses as to why they can't stop watching, they won't stop watching.
Yep.
And it's like, you can't even do that, but you're criticizing somebody who's taking a big
right.
This man just lost his like, that's something that he's passionate about and that he loves to do. He makes great money doing it. He could have been a mediocre athlete or whatever, but that was still something you know what I mean, that he was doing. Why you can't even do this one thing
to
and
make
that's
it
what
to
really
the
made me
professional
wonder.
leagues?
Yeah.
To make it to the professional leagues, there's so much time and money that you have to invest. I played football in high school, in middle school and high school. I never had the money to like go to the football camps in the summer to like really advance my skills.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who do, or who are talented enough that they'll just give you a scholarship to those types of programs because they want you in them, because they see the potential. The time, the hours, the efforts, the amounts of practices to just make it to the NFL. He didn't just make it to the NFL. He made it to the NFL, was a starter, made it to the Super Bowl, right? That time and dedication alone, not even talking about the advocacy part, not even talking about the loss of money, the loss of something that you love and giving that up. That's your whole life you've dedicated to one thing.
Right.
And freely walking away saying, look, I understand that by the time that he didn't get signed, he knew that continuing that protest was a deterrent of him getting another job, because
Right.
they weren't asking him in those interviews when he met with other teams about his throwing skills or his running skills. They were asking him, are you going to continue the protest?
Right.
And when he answered in the affirmative or didn't answer the question at all, that's when he didn't get a call back. That's when the busy signal came on. That's when he heard the click. So walking away from that is hard all by itself. Just it's necessary to break down the dedication of these athletes. Like, because people see it, oh, they get to play a game for their career. They're lucky. Yes, there is an element of fortunate, of luck, of gratitude that they should have for being able to be at that position. But there's a reason that there's value in it, because everybody can't do it.
Right.
And there's value in it because you are willing to pay money to go see it. It would lose its value if we stop watching and we stop paying for it. But clearly there's value in it. So when somebody has dedicated their lives, we got to look at their sacrifice too. We just can't look at them and like, oh, they athletes, they shouldn't be complaining about nothing.
Right.
They making way more money than me. Get outside of that mentality.
It made me, it makes me think back to this conversation we were having on the Poor Righteous Teachers, and how you point out that, even thinking earlier, in your life, being dedicated to the struggle, and to this movement of, getting our people to a certain place, getting our people out of this place, and thinking that you had to get all your fun out of the way. And so I think the disconnection is seeing people who are there, right? They appear, this celebrity lifestyle, they appear to be having too much fun to be serious about something, to be actually dedicated to something other than, whatever their job or responsibilities are, in that as a celebrity. And I think it's unfair, because we are supposed to be like whole humans, right? Even if people are 100% dedicated to the struggle, like, we talked about different activists now constantly, like that's all we really see from them, is constantly giving us updates on this and that. They're meeting with so and so, organizing, planning, strategizing, and it's like people's minds change. The questions start coming when we see a smile. You know what I mean? When we see them crack a smile or look nice, go on a date, like, how do we do this? I don't know. It's interesting, but I think like this celebrity stepping up to the plate and being a part, because we also got to realize, like, again, they're human, right? They're whole human beings before they even got to the position that they're in and started earning the money that they earn. They're human beings, and we talk about Black people too. They're Black people and they know the Black struggle.
Right.
So their celebrity status or their bigger paycheck doesn't erase their Blackness. So
Right.
so now they don't even count, because I always hear, oh, well, they're a capitalist now. Even when people talk about Jay-Z trying to do something, oh, well, he's a capitalist, he doesn't count. Or, or talking about, like these people, celebrities, whatever. But think about how back in the civil rights era, there were a lot of celebrities, like people who we know. And I think a lot of us now are disconnected from that idea because we weren't alive then, or, we were too young to know what was going on. But you had like Sidney Poitier and
Harry
Dorothy
Belafonte.
DeAndres, Harry Belafonte, exactly. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr., right, was an entertainer, and he raised like a quarter of the funds for the SCLC in one night for a benefit concert he did, right? Tribute to Martin Luther King, and raised a quarter of the whole organization's yearly fund, right? And what do you mean celebrities can't be involved or shouldn't be involved? This is a Black man. he is still being discriminated against. And that's one thing we also don't see. And I've heard, other celebrities speak on their experience of when they get, not just celebrities, but like they could be a politician or, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But once you reach a certain level, when you are one of the token people in that field, in that room, they experience a different type of, racism and discrimination that we do not experience, on this level where, we just amongst the regular people. And we have to also consider that they are putting themselves at a different position, to be criticized, to have their livelihood taken away from them. And we really just got to consider that they are people too. So what are you saying to them, by saying that they shouldn't have anything to say about it, or, their words, their feelings, their thoughts on it is not valid? We just really got to think about that.
Yeah. And it just doesn't, again, back to the conversation of what is the result? What is the expectation? Is this conversation, is this critique progressive? Is it productive? I understand, like we said, the necessity of being aware. That's very necessary. But make sure that you're aware and not breaking things down, like breaking it apart.
Destructive.
Right. There is constructive criticism and destructive criticism where you're just breaking stuff, right? And then you have your analytical where you're breaking down the elements to understand it, or you just breaking it down to tear it down. And we have to understand that there's a slippery slope there. We have to be very careful, very intentional about the words that we use, about how we criticize people, and the purpose of it. So there's a song by Saha the Prince called New Africa from, I think it was his last album. And he talks about, this is our deconstructed for today. And he talks about, what if, and I've heard so many people say this, even like before this song, I've had these ideas. What if all of our celebrities pooled their money together and did something positive for our environment, for our people? What if all these new millionaires and billionaires and close to billionaires that we have actually use their influence and funds to make a difference? You want to play the clip of him explaining it?
New Africa, huh? What we tell them? Tell the motherland that a nigga coming back for her New Africa. Man, just giving people understanding that the power is in our hands. Ultimately, you're going to have to fix this situation. Either if it's in leaving on an exodus or creating New Africa where you're at. Imagine if all the rappers were to get with all the athletes, the activists, and actors for a conference in Zaire to meet with all the ambassadors in the motherland. Tell them we coming back for America. No, if we leave, it be a massacre. African Americans in America, we're the engine to this country. You know what I'm saying? We make it circulate, like Jeezy used to say. You know what I'm saying? You need that money to circulate. You want to go see sports, you want to see actors, you want to see these things. It's like we have a lot to do with that. So if we weren't here to be very bland.
Yeah. So, okay, there you go.
We were talking the other day about having a lobby, right? Why is there not a black lobby? And one of the things that LeBron was saying in his protest was, oh, use these owners. We have some influence as players to move the owners. The owners have relationships to these people in Congress. Okay, we're going to leverage our influence here. We're making you money by playing. We refuse to play until you use your influence with those people and make some things happen. Some real tangible changes, policy changes, changes to the structure of the police unions, things that can actually make at least, because what happens is if the police union gets shut down or it gets restructured, then we can start criminalizing these murders. They're not protected. then there's no administrative leave. If there's real consequences to killing Black people, then we can do something. So back to the New Africa song, not just overly criticizing everything that our people with funds are doing. Looking at it, and sometimes when they ask us, if we say, okay, here is the agenda, here are ways that the celebrities and the people who have money, the wealthy, these are the ways that you can use your wealth to advance us. This is how we can, don't just blindly donate to an organization as a tax write-off.
Right.
This is how you can use those funds, use it as a tax write-off. You get the same benefits, but now you also benefit us as a whole.
Absolutely.
We can advise them in that way. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I feel the exact same way about that. And I think especially this is a time where we have more of us have so much more wealth, and access to resources. We have these platforms, we have multiple celebrities. Like you said, in the NBA, in the NFL, we are dominating. And those are not the only things. We look at hip hop music and R&B. These are some of the biggest genres around the world. People are listening, right? We look like some kind of fools to not use that to our advantage.
Yep.
I think where we went wrong too, where we go wrong is thinking that it's over, or that, since we made it now, people think that we made it because we do have more Black millionaires and billionaires. There's no reason we should have so many Black millionaires, multiple millionaires and billionaires, and we don't have what we need. We cannot buy the politicians who will push the things forward that we need, that we have the influence. We're influencing people around the whole world, and we are not using it to our benefit. It makes no sense.
And it goes back to poor righteous teachers and the fact that we're so critical of capitalism that we refuse to use it for our own benefit. Those of us who are overly conscious, yes, I have an inherent issue with capitalism, but me personally, or me and my organization having a problem with it and refusing to use it isn't going to dismantle it. Me not liking it from over here, it's still happening over there. So I can access it, utilize it, gain from it, learn how it works. Okay, how does it work? Okay, I can gain this money from doing this. These people respond to, if I can enter the room if I can pay this. I can shift this if I can do this. If I can get to a place where my voice is heard, I can start to be of influence. I can begin changing things by using the system. Like they keep saying the system wasn't made for us. It wasn't built for us. True. Guess what? Africa and its resources weren't built for Europeans or Asians, but they are taking advantage of it. They went there. They figured out, okay, how do people work? Okay, how do I get in here? How do I gain their trust? How do I exploit that trust? Let me do it. The same thing we have to do here. We got to learn the rules to their game. They playing chess, we playing tic-tac-toe. We're not even on the same board.
At all. We ain't even in the same category. And that's the thing, is just really seeing how what it takes to get what we need done. And again, it goes back to us not even knowing. You can ask, put 50 of us in a room and ask what Black America needs, what Black America wants. We don't even know where we need to go next. We don't even know what we need. And I think, that's pretty much, I think where we are, but also not understanding the strategy, not understanding what we need, the tools. If you are choosing, and I'm asking people all the time, because even though I live outside of the States, and I am, 100% like, oh no, I'm not I don't care to live back there. I can leave that system. I can be uninvolved, right? But I know I do still have the power to, my vote is still counted.
Right.
I still use my vote there. I still use my voice however I can, because guess what? The rest of my family and the rest of my people are there. If you're going to remain there, because a lot of people are like, well, our ancestors built this land, and so, I'm not moving. But if you're not moving, how are you going to operate there? Are you just do you plan on just sitting there and complaining about how it's not made for you and what you don't have access to? How are you going to get access? You need capital, again, to sit in the rooms, to approach certain people, to get politicians on, to move certain things. You need money. I don't know, a lot of people don't even understand. We touched on a little bit when we talked about 13th, the documentary, and there was a organization in there called ALEC, and ALEC, and people, these are corporations and other people of influence that have money, and they are literally writing laws that they want and need, right? Usually to our detriment, to their advantage. They are literally serving it up to their politician here with the money. You know what I mean? This is what we need. We have to realize how to play the game. They are still playing the game. We can't complain about how the game is being played. We're comfortable being the pawns in the game, being the pawns on the board, instead of figuring out the strategy. And how do we start to win? We know that it's not made for us. History shows us that the day-to-day struggle, what we see every single day, of how the police ain't for us, the politician ain't for. We know this. Now what?
Exactly.
We need capital. We can't have that bad relationship with capital. You know what I mean? With capitalism, yes, we don't like capitalism. Well, a lot of us don't. But at the same time, I see a lot of people who claiming that they're capitalists, but really they're they're part of that system, right? But they're not the real capital. They're not the actual capitalists.
We can benefit from the system by learning it, because it's going to be there.
It's going to be there.
It's not going to be won as us fighting from the outside. And I said this before, unless we are ready to take up real arms and start a physical war revolution, unless we're ready to do that, and I'm down if we are, but I doubt that most of us are. If you're talking this anti-capitalism, we have to win it by understanding the rules of their game and then beating them at it. We've shown that we have the capacity to beat them at their own game. That's why they blew up Rosewood and Black Wall Street, because we beat them at their own game. We understood capitalism very well, built our own community, built our own wealth, and they were like, hold up. We told these people they were inferior to us. We told ourselves that they were inferior to us, and they're advancing leaps and bounds beyond us. So we got to tear this down right now, physically. So we know how to play the game. We have to look Social Activism Playbook, Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. Look at the plays that have already been written. Look at our ancestors and see what they've already done and repeat those things. True. And now we live in a society. Think about how much more it was real dangerous. Like, we are afraid now. We live in neo-lynching society where if we get pulled over by the police, we're in danger. You could be walking outside of your house and just be hung for no reason by a mob of people. This is like 40, 50 years ago. This is not long. It's people who are still alive today who lived in that time period where this was happening, right? And it lasted for like hundreds of years, from the time of Reconstruction all the way through the Civil Rights Movement.
Right. So that's how most of us are in the places, like with our families migrating from these places where they were in immediate danger. That's how we end up in all these different places on the West Coast and the Northeast, so it was actual terror that they were fleeing.
Yes.
And we have no excuse.
Today, even though it's still not hunky-dory, me hosting this show with Michelee, years ago would have had my house bombed. They would have found out where I lived. I would be in immediate danger just by having this show. I'm not in immediate danger by just having this show right now. This is the time, even though it's not all good, right? It's not peaches. However, we are in a much more comfortable position than our ancestors were. So by recreating what they created, by doing a Black Wall Street now, I don't think it would just be bombed, right? I don't think they could get away with just bombing it, not with social media, not with the globe looking at everything, because we
have an advantage.
Exactly. One of the most powerful things about the nonviolence movement is that by them showing it on camera, the marches, right? By them showing the brutality that was happening to them from the people that were calling us the brutes, the international America loves to have themselves as the world's police. So if they're policing the world, they're policing Iran, North Korea, Iraq, whoever else, is saying that they internal politics, they have to change their internal politics. If we can show that our internal politics are flawed, then they have to save face on the international market. This is what happened. This is how the civil rights movement was able to make waves.
Exactly.
Because they showed, you know, President Eisenhower is saying, okay, this is what y'all need to do in Indochina. This is what y'all need to do and treat your people better in Germany. This is what y'all need to do to treat your people better in the USSR. And they were like, oh, really? But what about how you treat your Black citizens?
Exactly.
Now you gonna tell us how we run our country, but you got your own ish.
Like how Malcolm, how Malcolm tried to, you know, get in the world court. Like, look, let's put it on Front Street. We got to put it on Front Street. And I think we do have like a much bigger advantage now. And I think that though it's like it's all part of, I think it was all part of a plan, you know, the striking the fear into us, because we saw how viciously they struck down our leaders, you know, people who really gave their voices to the struggle before. And look at how they viciously, you know, just struck them down. We know that that's for a reason. Do we now not say anything? You know, because we're afraid. Like, are we afraid? Are we going to admit that we are afraid and just, you know, now, so we're just retreating? Or are we still, you know, because what's the point of us still talking about it, still complaining about it, if we're not willing to do what it takes to move forward? We have to, like, and the thing is, with the revolution, with everything going on, you know, to get us to where we need to go, it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to be uncomfortable. So when we talk about needing capital and stuff, that's going to mean sacrificing maybe something that, you know, some things that we enjoy, even if it's as simple as turning off your TV at a certain time so that they don't get the views, they don't get the, you know, the ratings and all this stuff, and they don't get their money. That was the whole point of blacking out the, you know, the NFL games and, you know, and all this different stuff. When we don't shop at a certain store, instead you see conversations of people arguing their friends and family about how they're not going to participate in the boycott because they don't see how marches and boycotts are working. It's like, you won't see how it's working because you're not participating.
Right. And here's another thing.
You won't get the result.
Here's another thing that we're not taught. So we'll buy what, $200 to $300 Jordans. Take that $300 and buy Nike stock.
Yeah. Buy the stock.
Take the $300 and buy stock in the company and own a piece of it.
Right.
Every time you want some Jordans, take that $250, buy another stock. Buy some more. Because you don't even, like, they have programs like Acorns and all this stuff. You don't even need to have the full amount for one whole stock. You can buy pieces of stocks.
Right.
That's capitalism. That's having access to it. But instead of just being a consumer with no return, use the same money you were going to spend on that company and buy a piece of it.
Right.
Then you can be proud of wearing your Jordans because now you own a piece of it. You get money every time that somebody else buys some. So it's about changing our mentality and understanding where we are, like understanding, like, it's okay to be aware. It's necessary, right? It's okay to be critical. It's necessary, but understand every element of it. Like the Jay-Z's of the world, who's telling you in his albums, he's not just bragging, he's saying, I'm gonna show you how to move in a room full of vultures.
Right.
I'm gonna enter the room. Look, I never told you to sell crack. I did it, so hopefully you wouldn't
So you didn't have to do that. Yep.
These are words from songs, people. Like these, we can criticize them, but they're doing their best with the knowledge that they have. They're showing us. Jay-Z didn't have to tell us that, man, I could have bought a house, I could have bought a building in a part of Brooklyn that now that building would have tripled in value had I known better. I'm telling you now that I do know better, that when the opportunity like that is there for you, take it. I'm telling you that I buy this expensive art because it increases in value over time. Instead of spending the same amount of money on a car that will decrease value as soon as I drive it off the lot.
Right.
Appreciable assets. Understanding all of that, because we can say, oh man, I don't like capitalism. Are you eating? Are you buying anything at all ever?
That's
or do
the
you
thing,
sew
though.
all your clothes?
Right. We're on one side of it. We're right. We want to be a part. Like, we're not totally rejecting it, because even if we, a lot of the people, this is the thing that kills me though, because a lot of the people that do complain about not liking capitalism, this and that, I'm seeing a lot of these same people criticizing every Black owned business and venture and stuff like that. You're not trying to pool your resources with Black people or with whoever in your community. We're picking apart everything. I think, and that's what we were talking about, is just basically it's like just a bunch of cynics that were created, a bunch of skeptics and cynics. And now you just don't like anything. You don't, you want to pick apart everything. You're just destructive. You're not trying to give. Exactly. So like, are we really trying to do this thing? How are we gonna? Yeah, and the thing is about it though, when it talking about like capitalism and stuff, a lot of people don't like the idea of it because it happens to us, right? We're on the other side of it. We're on the bottom side of it. But even when you were talking about like the celebrities, we'll praise them and like them when they're able to make money, to earn this money in that in the system. But it's like at the same time we don't see when it will benefit us like as a whole. And I wonder, is it us not seeing that value in ourselves, not thinking that we're worthy, even not thinking that we're worthy of being anything else?
I think that's a real element. I think that's a real element of it. And I just think it's because we don't know enough. We don't know how to utilize it. We're not taught about finances, so we are afraid of them. We're afraid of finances, and we think every time people have allowed this to become a saying that money is the root of all evil. That is the biggest lie ever told. Money is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. If I use a hammer to kill people, then I use that hammer to kill people, or I can use that hammer to build things.
Right.
The proper use of it is to be used for construction, but it can also be used to destroy. It's when it's in whoever's hands, it's your intentions of how you're going to use that tool, whether it's going to be for good or evil, right? Whether it's going to be productive or destructive. The same thing with money. Money is just currency. Money has no intention. Money has no feelings. It's something to be utilized. And if you take away all money from the world, there is still going to be access to greed. Money itself is not the root of all evil. Greed is. You can have greed in any element. You can take currency off the table and still find greed, still find people who will find ways to take advantage of other people. It's greed. Greed in food, greed in resources, greed in currency, greed even in a barter system. If I'm bartering with you, we off currency, and I say I'll offer you 1 cow for 5 goats, and you're like, no, I'll give you 1 cow but I'm gonna need 30 goats. That's greed. You can still find ways to take advantage of people no matter what the economic structure is.
Exactly. Right.
So
That's the
we bought
idea.
into this
That's the idea
idea,
behind it.
right? We bought into this idea that money itself is evil. So we want it, we understand that we need it, but every time we get close to it or somebody else gets close to it, we start to question their intentions, and we think that that changes the person. Money don't change people. Money highlights who the person already was.
Imagine if, because I already say, from years ago, I was like, I know that I can't sit by, and just live my life without thinking about, where we are as a people and where we need to go. So I already decided that I was dedicating my life to, whatever. If I made it to a certain financial status or whatever, I already know that, I already made up my mind that I'm going to dedicate myself and my resources to the struggle.
Right.
And I think, I don't know, it's just so interesting though, because I know my intentions, right? And the people who know me know that I have good intentions, but I already know that it would be like, if I plan to just say, for instance, in the disease in a certain area or, wherever, if I could do something globally or whatever, people would think, because if I, have a certain amount of money, that I would be trying to intentionally kill people or poison people.
Right.
Because it's like, there's no way you can be rich and be trying to help people. And it's just, it's so ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous idea that that's the immediate thought. I can see if everybody who I claim to help drop dead.
Right.
Right. But if you're not even seeing that, like, why in your mind, like, why do you automatically go to the negative, to the most negative thing? Because money is now in the picture. I think, we can't, it would be honorable if I were to say, while I'm poor, well, I have not, I can't even provide for 300 people, then okay, well, her intentions might be good. She's trying to do something good. The minute I get a bunch of money and still go with the same plans, now all of a sudden, I must have sold out. I'm evil. Like at this point, we already know that
I'm evil.
That would happen.
I'm in the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
I was
just about to say, yes. Because we automatically do it. People do it all the time. And I'm always thinking, like, what about the people? Like, didn't you go to school with him? You know him, or, like you know her. And automatically when they get that money, it's like they change it. The money mysteriously changes these people. And like, their attitudes, like some people I get like how people see certain people's attitudes when they came from nothing and now they have money, and so now they walk a little different, they they talk different, they they look different. We get that part, but why do they have to turn into this evil mastermind now that they have more funds? And I think it might be part jealousy in there, it might be but there's just like distrust. And with the access to all the funds and the resources and the positions that we have now that our elders and our ancestors didn't have 50, 60 years ago, we need to be taking advantage of this. Like, we can't, please stop being silly.
A lot of it is really just lack of understanding, which is why we have this, like, we're not here to talk down to anybody on either side. We present ourselves as knowledgeable but regular.
Right.
On that way, so that we're not demonized, we're not deified, we're human. First of all, we have fun. We laugh on this show for, for that purpose, because we want to keep it light, but also address real stuff that's happening so that you can see, okay, there are certain times where we like, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know. Having the ability and freedom to say I don't know in public and be okay with it, and not always have to put on like, oh yeah, I know all of this, I always know. Nope, I don't know. I got to do some more research, or I'll put what I find in the description of the video when it's time to continuously humanize myself And humanize meaning elevating myself to a certain level and humbling myself to a certain level, keeping that balance. Because if you elevate yourself, they're going to tear you down. If you demonize yourself, then they're going to just keep you down there.
They won't even see the value in you, period.
Right. And they're not going to listen to you at all. So there's that delicate balance of, appreciating who you are in your own voice and what we're doing, the reason that we're humanizing ourselves, so that the people listening can realize that you can participate as well. Because what happens is, if you see us as, so unattainable, then you feel like you're going to put all the burden and the weight on us to do everything. No, that's how we need to get out of the mindset of looking at our celebrities, get out of the mindset of looking at our politicians like that. They are one position, but they need you too. Your constituency goes beyond just the polls. Having that agenda set can make people who aren't genuine still do what you want them to do. I will continuously say this. Barack Obama had to show his birth certificate. It was one of the dumbest requests in history, but he had to do it because people who didn't vote for him, who didn't support him, made an agenda, put funds behind it, and pressed until he had to respond to their demand. We can do the same thing whether we voted for a person or not. If we have a set agenda and we put funds behind it, this is where we need the wealthy people. This is where we need access to the wealth. This is how we need to know how the economic system works so we can take advantage of it and use it. We need to know how the economic system works. We need to know how the political system works and be involved in it so that we can push that narrative, so that we can make that change. We can create our own propaganda. We can do all of these things. We can use all of these tools. It's right there in front of us. Exactly. Instead of throwing the tool away where we don't even have the power to throw the tool away, it still exists. We just refusing to use it.
You just said like propaganda, like we automatically associate it with something negative because how it was used against us. But we should also consider, how can we sell? Maybe we need to use this tool of propaganda, creating this propaganda to draw in people to do what we need them to do. We also can use that same exact tool that was used against us to create something that benefits us, right? Everything just can't be so negative.
We believe that by us not using it, it's gonna go away. No,
or just calling it
still
bad.
There.
We just call it bad, but it still happens. It's still being there. Used.
So I might as well use it for me.
Right.
For us.
Right.
While it's gonna be there, I'm gonna pick up the hammer and build for us.
The toolbox. Okay. We need to present the toolbox. Okay. These are the tools
the whole toolbox
that we have access to. Right.
Politics
let's have instructional.
Politics is a wrench. Economics is a screwdriver. You know what I'm saying? The power drill is the education system.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we have it at our disposal. We just need to learn it. We live in the system. We know that it's not built for us, but we can still. It's the same way they infiltrated the Black Panther Party for self-defense. The same way they infiltrated the UNIA. They infiltrated the SCLC. They infiltrated us. We can infiltrate their systems that they built for them, use it for us, and make some moves. So this is where I am, right? So for the culture, we see this cancel culture, and we've already talked about cancel culture, and we prefer counsel culture. So if you want to be a critic, a productive critic, a constructive critic of our wealthy, of the people who have gained access to the capitalism system, and they're asking for us, like the NBA players now, they're saying, what's the next steps? How do we go? Right? We can advise them. We can be a council of counselors to them on how to proceed with their funds, on what to do with this or that, on how to proceed, on how to continue to use their influence. If they cancel the playoffs, where do we go from here? Those of us who are in the know can write up something. Something that we're going to talk about more in detail tomorrow is Ice Cube has this thing called a contract for Black America.
For Black America.
And he wants all the politicians to sign it to say what they're going to do for us on that agenda. And we're going to cover that in more detail tomorrow. But that's one element of what we can do. We can set the demands. We can show and teach the athletes the lessons instead of berating them with the supposed knowledge that we have and beating them down with it. We can elevate them with it. Say, hey, check this book out. Everybody's on Twitter. DM them until you get blocked. And then find somebody who you know who might have access to them. Figure it out. We have to be strategic.
I was just about to say, we have more people like in positions, like we have so many black people that work on these political campaigns and that work in the offices with these people who need to be influenced, who we need to get the message to. Why aren't we using this? You know, it's like we need to be like, think about like the strategy. How do we use our resources, use the people, you know, on the ground? How can you be of help, you know?
What we want you guys to do is really just think about these things. Like before we criticize, advise. Advise, not criticize, right? Be a counselor. Counsel, don't cancel. That's all. That's how we can advance. And we're going to leave you guys with that today. And we'll continue part 2 of this pro-righteous teachers nonsense tomorrow, because we're going to tell you how we need to get off of that train and really take advantage of the tools at our disposal and use them to our advantage. As always, Actualizing African Unity and African Unity Initiative is a full nonprofit organization actually doing real work. So we hope that you get involved. We hope that you follow us on all social media at African Unity everywhere, and on our website to really get involved financially, as well as in kind, as well as just in your time, volunteering and such, at africanunity.us. We need you guys. We need your support. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Mish, let them know where they can find you.
Yes. You can find me at Michelee the Maker on social media, my business page, Mishmash World, and my website, mishmashworld.com.
We love you guys as always. Peace.